Hey guys, tonight we slip into the misty fjords of Scandinavia, where the Vikings, those wild bearded legends, carve their saga into history's bones. Picture yourself standing on a rocky shore, the air sharp with salt and pine, as a dragon-prowed longship slices through the fog. Waves slap the hull, and you squint at the horizon, wondering if you're predator or prey. Spoiler, you probably won't survive this world of axes and ambition. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I'm curious where you're drifting off tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're in Scandinavia, around the late 8th century, where the Viking Age sparks to life. The land is a patchwork of rugged mountains, deep fjords, and stubborn soil that forces people to scratch out a living. Norway, Sweden, and Denmark aren't unified nations yet, just a sprawl of tribes and chieftains, each scrapping for power. Historians peg the Viking Age's start to 793, when Norse raiders sacked the Lindisfarne Monastery in England, shocking Christian Europe. That's the mainstream fact, a single raid that branded the Vikings as chaos incarnate. But who were these people before they became history's favorite pirates? You trudge through a coastal village, mud sucking at your boots. Smoke curls from thatched roofs, and the clang of a blacksmith's hammer cuts through the drizzle. These aren't just raiders, they're farmers, fishers, and craftsmen tied to the land's rhythm. Families huddle in longhouses, wooden halls where livestock and people share warmth against the brutal winters. You duck inside one, the air thick with the smell of wool and stew. A grandmother weaves at a loom, her fingers nimble despite the cold, while kids wrestle near the fire. It's cozy, but don't get too snug. Space is tight, and privacy's a myth. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Vikings used walrus ivory to craft game pieces for a board game called Hnefatafl, a chess-like strategy duel. You spot a carved set on a bench. The piece is worn smooth from countless matches. It's a reminder these folks weren't always swinging swords. They loved a good mental spar, too. But why did they turn to the sea? Historians still argue whether it was overpopulation, scarce farmland, or just raw ambition that pushed them outward. The land's harsh, sure, but these people are stubborn. You can see it in their calloused hands and weathered faces. You wander to the village edge, where a chieftain's hall looms. He's no king, just a local big shot with a knack for rallying loyalty. His men boast about their lineage, tracing it to gods like Odin or Thor. You overhear a skald, a poet, spinning tales of ancestors who wrestled giants. It's half brag, half belief, and you smirk at the exaggeration. Joke's on you, though these stories glue the community together, giving them courage to face the unknown. Speaking of unknown, the sea calls. You glance at a half-built ship, its oak planks gleaming. Why risk everything on those waves? Maybe it's greed, maybe glory, or maybe they're just restless, like you, itching for something bigger. The village buzzes with purpose. Women haul water, men mend nets, and everyone knows their role. But don't mistake this for peace. Rival clans are a day's sail away, and grudges fester like damp rot. You catch a whiff of mead from the hall, where deals are struck and oaths sworn. It's a fragile balance, this life, and you're starting to get why some might gamble it all on a raid. The sea's a gamble too, but it's also a road to wealth, fame, or a watery grave. You shiver, not just from the wind. This is where it begins, this restless spark. The Vikings are waking up, and you're about to see what they're made of. You're aboard a Viking longship now, the deck swaying beneath your feet as icy spray stings your face. The sail snaps in the wind, a woolen square embroidered with ravens, and you grip the oar, your knuckles white. This isn't just a boat, it's a marvel of engineering, sleek and shallow, built to dance across stormy seas or glide up narrow rivers. The mainstream fact, Viking longships, like the famous Gokstad ship unearthed in Norway, could carry 40 men and sail at 15 knots, outpacing anything else in the 9th century. You're moving fast, but the horizon's endless, and you're wondering if you'll ever see land again. Spoiler: seasickness is the least of your worries. The ship's crew is a rough bunch, bearded men with wind-burned faces, their laughter half mad as they trade jibes. You're rowing in rhythm, the oars weight, making your shoulders scream. The ship's oak frame creaks, but it's flexible, bending with the waves like a living thing. A quirky tidbit: Vikings sometimes smeared seal fat on hulls to make them slipperier, cutting through water like a knife. You smirk, imagining the smell, fishy and rank, but it works. The helmsman, a grizzled veteran, barks orders, steering by stars and a crude sun compass. No GPS here, just gut and skill. You glance at the prow, carved like a snarling dragon to scare off sea spirits. Superstitious, maybe, but when waves tower over you, you'll take any edge. Historians still argue whether Vikings navigated by ravens, releasing birds to spot land, or relied solely on coastal landmarks. Either way, you're impressed. The ship's design lets it reverse without turning, perfect for quick getaways. You're sailing toward England, rumors of fat monasteries buzzing among the crew. Gold, silver, maybe a few thralls, slaves, to bring home. Your stomach churns, not just from the rocking deck. The sail's your lifeline, catching every gust, but rowing's brutal when the wind dies. You're paired with a guy who smells like old cheese. Joke's on you, you're not exactly fresh either. He grins, missing a tooth, and says, "Keep up, or we toss you to Njord." That's the sea god, and you're not keen to meet him. The crew's camaraderie is rough but real. They'll die for each other, or at least share the last scrap of dried cod. You notice runes carved into the mast, maybe a prayer, maybe a boast. It's personal, this ship. Each plank a story. Days blur. Salt crusts your skin, and your hands blister. You're learning the ropes, literally, hauling lines to trim the sail. The crew sings, a low chant to keep time, and you join in, your voice hoarse. It's hypnotic, this life, but danger's close. A storm could snap the mast, or rivals could ambush you. You spot a whale breaching, its tail slapping the sea, and the crew cheers. Good luck, they say. You're not so sure. Another joke. If we sink, at least the fish get a feast. You laugh, but your eyes scan for land. The helmsman points to a faint smudge. Land, maybe an island. Your heart lifts, but the crew's tense. Friend or foe? You're not just passengers. You're warriors, traders, explorers, all at once. The longship's your home, your weapon, your way out. You're starting to get it. Why they love this life. Why they risk it. The sea's cruel, but it's freedom. You lean into the oar, the rhythm steady, and for a moment, you're one of them, chasing the unknown, just like those restless souls back in that muddy village. Remember that spark. It's burning now. Full flame. You're crouched in the belly of a longship, the shore of an English village looming through dawn's mist. Oars are stowed, and the crew's quiet, their breath steaming in the chill. Axes and swords clink softly as they ready for a raid. The Vikings' infamous calling card. The mainstream fact, the 783 Lindisfarne raid, where Vikings looted a monastery, marked their brutal debut in Western records, shocking monks who called them heathen wolves. You're about to see why. The village ahead is asleep, smoke curling from a few chimneys. You're sweating despite the cold, heart hammering. Raiding's not a game, and you're not sure you're cut out for this. The ship glides silent, beaching with a soft crunch. You scramble ashore, mud squelching underfoot, following warriors who move like shadows. The leader, a scarred man with a raven tattoo, signals to spread out. You stick close, clutching a borrowed dagger. The plan's simple hit fast, grab loot, and vanish before the locals rally. A quirky tidbit, some Vikings wore reversible tunics, blue for peace, red for war. to blend in after raids. You're in drab wool, feeling like a target either way. The village is small, thatched huts and a wooden church, its cross glinting faintly. You creep toward the church, where the real prize waits. Silver chalices, maybe gold. A dog barks, and you freeze, but it's just chasing a rat. Joke's on you. Your nerves are the real enemy. Inside, the air's thick with incense. You help pry open a chest, revealing coins and a jeweled cross. Your hands shake. Stealing feels wrong, but survival's the rule here. The crew's efficient, stuffing sacks with loot, but some smash altars for fun. You wince, remembering that cozy longhouse from Scandinavia. These are the same people, just unleashed. Historians still argue whether raids were driven by desperation or greed. Was it scarce land back home, or just the thrill of easy wealth? You're not sure, but the chaos is real. A shout breaks the quiet. Someone spotted you. Villagers stumble out, wielding pitchforks, faces pale with fear. The Vikings roar, forming a shield wall, and you're shoved behind it. Arrows fly, mostly missing, but a scream says someone's hit. You glimpse a monk praying, his robes bloodied, and your stomach twists. This isn't glorious, it's messy. The leader barks to retreat. You sprint for the ship, loot bouncing in your sack. A villager swings a club, but a Viking cuts him down. Too quick, too final. You're panting, guilt and adrenaline mixing. Back on the beach, you shove the ship into the surf, leaping aboard as arrows splash around you. The sail catches wind, and you're gone, the village shrinking to a smudge. The crew laughs, passing around mead, but you're quiet. Another joke. What's worse than a Viking? A seasick one. You force a smile, but your hands still clutch that dagger. As the shore fades, you realize raiding's not just about loot. It's power, fear, a message. You're starting to see the Vikings' world, where strength writes the rules. The crew counts their haul, silver glinting in the rising sun. You touch the stolen cross in your sack, its weight heavy in more ways than one. Back in that fjord village, they'll cheer this haul, but you're wondering what it cost. The sea stretches ahead, and you lean into the rhythm of the oars, remembering that dragon-proud ship slicing through fog. This is who they are: sailors, raiders, survivors. You're back in Scandinavia, trudging through a Viking settlement as dawn paints the sky pink. The air smells of wood smoke and fresh bread, and you're weaving between long houses, their turf roofs sprouting grass like sleepy green hair. This is daily life, the heartbeat of the Viking world. Less raiding, more routine. The mainstream fact: most Vikings were farmers, not full-time warriors, growing barley and oats on small plots while raising cattle and goats. You're here to live it, boots sinking into muddy paths, wondering how anyone thrives in this chilly grind. Spoiler, it's not all mead and glory. You duck into a longhouse, the air warm and smoky from a central hearth. A family's bustling, mother stirring porridge, father sharpening a scythe, kids feeding chickens that cluck underfoot. The space is cramped, maybe 50 feet long, with benches doubling as beds. You sit, the wool blanket scratching your legs, and accept a bowl of porridge. It's bland but hearty, and you're grateful. A quirky tidbit, Vikings used fermented shark, hakarl, as a winter staple. Its ammonia stench enough to make you gag. You're glad it's not on today's menu. Outside, you join the work. You're hauling water from a stream, your arms aching, while women spin wool and men repair fishing nets. Everyone's busy, even the kids, who herd goats with surprising bossiness. You try milking one, and it kicks the bucket over. Jokes on you, city slicker. The rhythm's relentless sow. Reap, fish, fix. Winters are brutal, so summer's a race to stockpile. You notice runes carved on a doorframe, maybe a charm for luck. It's practical magic, born of hard lives. Historians still argue whether Viking society was egalitarian or rigidly hierarchical. Sure, chieftains flaunt silver arm rings, but here, everyone shares the grind. You spot a thrall, slave, hauling firewood, his eyes downcast. Slavery's a dark truth, often captives from raids like that English village you saw. You're uneasy, remembering the stolen cross in your sack. Still, the community hums. At midday, you join a meal under the sky, passing around flatbread and smoked fish. Someone cracks a joke. Why'd the cow hide? She heard about the stew. You laugh, loosening up. By afternoon, you're at the forge, watching a blacksmith hammer iron into a plow blade. Sparks fly, and you're mesmerized. Metalwork's a Viking superpower, from swords to nails. Nearby, a woman dyes cloth with woad, her hands stained blue. Trade's alive here. Amber beads and furs are stacked for the next market. You wander to the shore, where fishermen mend boats, their chatter full of sea tales. One swears he saw a mermaid. You roll your eyes. Another joke. Mermaids just seals with better stories. As dusk falls, you're invited to the chieftain's hall. Mead flows, and a skald recites a poem about a hero who wrestled a troll. The crowd cheers, and you clap, caught in the glow. This life's tough but vibrant, woven with stories and sweat. You're starting to get it. Rating's just one piece of the puzzle. These people endure because they're stubborn, like that spark you saw in the fjord, now a steady flame in this village. You lean against a post, the fire's warmth on your face, and realize you're not just visiting, you're living their world, if only for a day. You're standing in a Scandinavian grove, twilight casting long shadows over a circle of weathered stones. The air hums with whispers as a crowd gathers, their faces lit by flickering torches. This is where Vikings meet their gods. Norse mythology, the wild, poetic pulse of their world. You're here to unravel it, feeling the weight of ancient beliefs. The mainstream fact, Odin, Thor, and Freya were central to Norse religion, worshipped through rituals often tied to nature. You're about to dive in, but the eerie quiet makes your skin prickle. Good luck keeping up with these cosmic dramas. A priestess, her cloak embroidered with runes, raises a horn of mead to the sky. She's honoring Odin, the one-eyed All-Father, god of wisdom and war. You picture him, raven-flanked, trading an eye for knowledge. Talk about a rough deal. The crowd chants, and you join, your voice shaky. Offerings pile up bread, a carved horse, even a dagger. A quirky tidbit, some Vikings believed Odin's ravens, Hugin and Munin, flew the world daily, spying for him. You glance up, half expecting black wings overhead. Joke's on you. Those are just clouds. You move through the ritual, the priestess invoking Thor, the thunder god with his hammer, Mjolnir. His worship's practical. Farmers beg him for rain, warriors for strength. You touch a tiny hammer amulet someone hands you. It's iron cool. The crowd loves Thor. He's the people's champ, not Odin's brooding mastermind. Then there's Freya, goddess of love and magic, who rides a cat-drawn chariot. You smirk, cats pulling a goddess that's Viking flair. Her darker side, though, is cedar, a sorcery some Vikings feared as unmanly. Gender norms, complicated here. Historians still argue whether Norse myths were literal beliefs or poetic metaphors. Did they really think Thor's hammer caused thunder? Or was it a symbol? You're not sure, but the passion's real. The priestess spills mead on a stone, and the crowd kneels. You follow, moss damp under your knees. A goat's led forward, sacrifice for a good harvest. It's quick, the blood-soaking earth, and you look away, remembering that stolen cross from the raid. These rituals aren't so different, just dressed in older gods. The crowd shifts to a feast nearby, under starlight. You sit on a log, passing around roasted meat and stories. Someone claims their ancestor saw Valhalla, Odin's hall for slain warriors. You listen, skeptical but charmed. Another joke. Valhalla's great, but the mead's too strong. Laughter erupts, easing the night's weight. You hear of Loki, the trickster god, blamed for every mishap. He's a fan favorite, despite the chaos. You're starting to see how these tales, gods, giants, cosmic wolves, shape everything, from raids to that cozy longhouse life. As embers glow, the the Skald takes over, weaving a saga of Ragnarok, the world's end. You're wrapped, the apocalypse feeling close in this dark wood. These myths aren't just stories. They're a lens for Viking grit, their defiance against a harsh world. You think back to the longship, its dragon prow cutting fog. Same spirit, same stubborn spark. You clutch the hammer amulet, its weight grounding you. The fire pops, and you're not just a visitor anymore. You're caught in the myth, part of this strange, sacred night. You're weaving through a Viking settlement. The morning air sharp with the tang of fish and damp wool. A woman strides past, her knife glinting at her belt, barking orders to a group hauling timber. She's no exception here. Viking women are a force, shattering the stereotype of meek homemakers. You're about to meet them, stepping into their world of power and defiance. The mainstream fact women in Viking society could own property, divorce, and inherit, rights rare for the era. You're intrigued, but the bustle around you, women trading, arguing, leading, says this won't be a soft tale. Brace yourself. You follow the woman, Astrid, to a market stall, piled with furs and amber. She's haggling with a trader, her voice sharp, winning a better price with a glare. You're impressed. She's not just a wife or mother. She's a businesswoman. A quirky tidbit, some Viking women wore tortoise-shell brooches, not just for fashion, but to pin cloaks and flex status. Astrid's got two, gleaming like badges. You try keeping up as she checks her loom, inspects a thrall's work, then settles a dispute between neighbors. Multitasking. She's a pro. You're pulled into her longhouse, where she's weaving wool with a girl, her daughter maybe. The loom's rhythmic clack fills the smoky air. Astrid shares stories, women who sailed, fought, even led raids. You think of that English village, the chaos of axes. Could she have been there, shield in hand? Historians still argue whether shield maidens, like Lagertha, were real or saga myths. Bones from some warrior graves, once assumed male, now test female, stirring debate. Astrid smirks, as if she knows the truth. You're half convinced she's fought off wolves with that knife. She hands you a spindle. Your job's to spin wool. You fumble, the thread snapping, and she laughs. City hands, she teases. Joke's on you, but her warmth's real. You learn women here run households when men sail, managing farms, thralls, even defenses. Some, like Astrid, are frou, high-status ladies with clout. Others, widowed or divorced, carve their own paths. You hear of a seeress, a vulva, whose visions guide the village. Astrid respects her, but you sense a rivalry. Power's complex here. By afternoon, you're at a feast where Astrid toasts the gods, her voice carrying over the men's. She's no wallflower, and neither are the women pouring mead, joking, or joining the skald's tale. One cracks a joke. Why's Thor single? Freyja stole his hammer and his heart. The crowd roars, and you grin, caught in the vibe. But not all's equal. Thrall women toil in the shadows, reminders of that raid's cost. You shift, the stolen crosses wait, lingering in your mind. As dusk settles, Astrid shows you a rune-carved stone she raised for her father, a chieftain. She's proud, her role as heir clear. You're starting to see it. These women aren't just part of the Viking spark. They're its keepers, fierce as any longship's prow. You think back to the grove, Thor's hammer amulet in your hand. That strength runs here, in Astrid's steady gaze, in every woman shaping this world. You leave the longhouse, the night air cool, feeling their fire in your bones. You're swaying on a merchant ship, the deck cluttered with barrels of furs and amber, as you sail a Viking trade route stretching from Scandinavia's fjords to distant markets. The sea's calmer now, but the horizon hums with possibility. Wealth, deals, maybe danger. You're here to explore the Vikings' vast trade networks, their less bloody, but no less bold side. The mainstream fact: Vikings traded as far as Baghdad and Byzantium, exchanging furs and slaves for silver and silk by the 9th century. You're gripping a rope, salt in your hair, ready to see how they connected worlds. Don't expect a leisurely cruise, though. The ship's headed for Birka, a Swedish trade hub, buzzing like a medieval mall. You pass other vessels, Nars, wider than longships, built for cargo. Your captain, a wiry man with a silver arm ring, haggles over tolls with a Danish patrol. A quirky tidbit: Vikings used hack silver, chopped up jewelry, as currency, weighed on portable scales. You watch him slice a Frankish brooch, smirking at the makeshift economy. The crew's diverse, a Rus trader, a Sami furrier, even a monk turned middleman. You're out of place, your hands soft compared to theirs. You dock at Birka, the shore alive with stalls and shouts. You wander, dodging carts of walrus ivory and glass beads. Traders barter in Norse, Arabic, even halting Latin. You spot silk from Persia, spices from who knows where. It's a far cry from that muddy village, but the same spark drives it. Vikings chasing more. Historians still argue whether trade or raiding fueled their expansion. Was it peaceful commerce or sword-backed deals? You see both. A merchant smile hides a dagger. You buy a comb, bone, not plastic, and overpay. Jokes on you, new guy tax. The market's a sensory overload. Fish, sweat, and exotic perfumes mixing in the air. You follow a trader to a smithy, where iron from Swedish bogs become swords for Frankish lords. Nearby, a woman sells amber, her scales gleaming. You're offered mead, but it's more like rocket fuel. Another joke. Drink this, and you'll trade your own boots. You pass, sticking to water. The trade routes aren't just about goods. They're cultural highways. Runes here mimic Arabic script, and a Thor pendant dangles beside a Christian cross. You touch that stolen cross in your sack. Its weight, a quiet anchor. You sail on, bound for the Volga, where Rus Vikings link Baltic amber to Caspian silk. The river's sluggish, mosquitoes relentless. You swat one, cursing, and the crew laughs. Stories flow of Constantinople's golden gates, of Arab coins flooding Norse coffers. You're awed. These aren't just pirates, they're global players. A third joke. Why'd the Viking go east? Better loot, worse bugs. You grin, but danger's close. Rival traders lurk, and a bad deal could spark a brawl. You tighten your grip on the comb, a small piece of this vast web. As stars emerge, you lean against a barrel, the ship rocking gently. Birka's chaos fades, but its energy lingers. You're starting to see the Vikings reach, not just axes, but ideas, goods, ambition. That longship's dragon prow, that grove's torchlit chants, Astrid's fierce gaze. They're all here, woven into every trade. The captain points to a river bend, a new market ahead. You're not just sailing, you're chasing the same restless flame that lit those fjords. The night's cool, but you're warm with the thrill of it. You're standing on a grassy hill in Scandinavia, the wind carrying the scent of earth and distant sea. Below, a crowd gathers around a massive stone, carved with runes, for a thing, a Viking assembly where disputes are settled and laws forged. You're here to witness their justice system, a messy but vital part of their world. The mainstream fact things were democratic gatherings where free men, and sometimes women, debated and voted, predating modern parliaments. You're jostling for a view, your boots sinking into mud, ready to see order emerge from chaos. Don't expect a quiet courtroom, though. The chieftain, a broad man with a silver-tipped beard, raises a staff, silencing the chatter. You're surrounded by farmers, traders, even Astrid from the market, her gaze sharp. Two men step forward. One claims the other stole his cattle. Accusations fly, voices rising like a storm. A quirky tidbit, Vikings sometimes settled disputes with Holmgang, a ritual duel on a cloaked-off square. You glance at the axes on their belts, hoping it doesn't come to that. The crowd's tense, but there's a rhythm here, a shared respect for the process. You listen as witnesses testify, their stories peppered with oaths to Thor. The chieftain questions them, his voice calm but firm. You're impressed. There's no king, no written code, just custom and consensus. Historians still argue whether things were truly egalitarian or skewed toward the powerful. Astrid's here, voting, but thralls stand silent at the edges, their freedom a dream. You think of that raid, the stolen cross heavy in your mind. Justice feels uneven when some voices don't count. The cattle thieves found guilty, ordered to pay 3 silver arm rings. He grumbles but nods, better than banishment or a blade. The crowd cheers, and you clap, caught in the moment. Someone cracks a joke. He'll steal the rings back by moonrise. Laughter ripples, easing the tension. You're handed mead, its warmth spreading. The thing moves to another case, a land dispute between neighbors. A woman speaks, her claim as bold as any man's. You nod, remembering Astrid's strength, that spark from the fjords. By noon, the sun breaks through clouds, and the thing feels like a festival. Kids dart around, and traders hawk bread. You join a circle debating a new law. Should raiders share more loot? Voices clash, but the chieftain listens, guiding without dictating. It's raw, this democracy, flawed but alive. Another joke. Why's the thing so loud? Too much mead, not enough ears. You grin, but you're awed. These people govern themselves, balancing freedom and order on a knife's edge. As dusk falls, the final case wraps, a marriage dispute, settled with a handshake and a goat. The crowd thins, and you linger, tracing the runestone's carvings. This thing isn't just law, it's community, the glue of their world. You see that longship's prow, the grove's torches, the market's bustle, all tied here in this stubborn will to decide together. You're starting to get it. Vikings aren't just raiders or traders. They're builders of something lasting. The stars emerge, and you're warm with the weight of it, ready to carry this moment forward. You're perched on a rocky outcrop, gazing over a Scandinavian fjord where the Viking age is fading, its pulse slowing like a weary heart. The longships are fewer now, and the raids less bold. You're here to probe the decline of this era, a puzzle of shifting tides and broken ambitions. The mainstream fact, the Viking Age, roughly 793 to 1066, waned as Christianity spread and centralized kingdoms grew in Scandinavia. You're sifting through the clues, the wind sharp against your face, wondering what snuffed out that fierce spark. This isn't a tidy ending. Brace for murky waters. You wander a village, quieter than the one you first saw. The chieftain's hall is smaller, its carvings weathered. Locals talk of new kings, men like Harald Hardrada, consolidating power in Norway. Tribes are merging into nations, and the old ways, raiding, roving, don't fit. A quirky tidbit, some Vikings carved runestones, boasting of peaceful deaths in bed. A shift from Valhalla's warrior glory. You spot one, moss-covered, and smirk. Dying old was the new flex. But the shift feels heavy, like losing a song you half remember. You sit with a trader, his hands scarred from years at sea. He grumbles about taxes, a new burden from Christian kings who favor stone churches over wooden things. You recall the rune-stone assembly, its raw democracy. Now, bishops and royal decrees call the shots. Historians still argue whether Christianity tamed the Vikings or if economic shifts, like better European defenses, closed raiding's door. You think of that English village, its pitchforks and panic. Maybe victims got smarter, fortifying coasts. The trader shrugs, sipping mead, and says, "No loot, no point." The fjord's edge draws you, where a half-built ship rots. Longships are out, clunky cogs, better for trade, are in. You trace the dragon prow, its snarl faded, and feel a pang. That restless flame from the first village, the one that drove Astrid, the market, the grove, it's dimming. Another joke. Why'd the Viking quit? Too many forms to raid. You chuckle, but the truth stings. Europe's changing. Monasteries are walled, and Viking swords dull against feudal armies. You recall Birka's bustle. Even trade hubs are shrinking as local markets rise. You hear a skald, his voice soft, singing of Harold's 1066 defeat at Stamford Bridge. It's a nail in the coffin, one of many. Some Vikings cling to the old gods, but Thor's hammer hangs beside crosses now. You touch that stolen cross in your sack, its edges worn, assimilations creeping in. Vikings are becoming Danes, Swedes, Norwegians. A third joke. Odin's mad. He got a tax bill. You smile, but the skald's eyes are distant. The myths endure, but their fire's banked, more memory than fuel. As night falls, you sit by a fire, the village hushed. The decline's not one thing. No cataclysm, just a slow bleed. Stronger foes, new faiths, bigger kingdoms, all chipped away. You see that longship slicing fog, Astrid's knife, the thing's runestone. They're slipping into history, but you feel their weight. The Vikings didn't vanish. They adapted, their spark flickering in new forms. You're quiet, the stars sharp above, carrying their story like an ember, not ready to let it go. You're sitting on a modern Scandinavian shore, the fjord before you, glinting under a pale sun, whispering of the Vikings whose echoes still linger. You're here to trace their legacy, how their restless spirit shapes today's world. The mainstream fact, Viking influence persists in language, law, and DNA, with English words like sky and knife rooted in Old Norse. You're holding a smooth pebble, feeling the weight of centuries, ready to see how that fierce spark burns on. This is no museum piece. It's alive, woven into now. You wander a town, its streets named for Odin and Thor. Nearby, a festival reenacts a Viking market, with stalls selling horned helmets. Pure myth, but you grin. Locals wear hammer pendants, nodding to the old gods, while churches stand where things once met. A quirky tidbit, the Bluetooth symbol on your phone, merges runes for Harold Bluetooth, a Christian Viking king. You chuckle, imagining him sinking a longship. The past isn't gone, it's remixed. From street signs to tech, you visit a museum where a longship's skeleton looms. Its lines recall that sea spray journey, the dragon prow cutting fog. Scholars trace Viking genes across Britain, Iceland, even Russia. Raiders and traders left more than loot. Historians still argue whether their legacy is cultural or genetic, a saga of ideas or blood. You touch a replica axe, thinking of Astrid's knife, her fierce gaze. Her strength lives in Nordic equality laws, rooted in those property-owning women. You smirk. Vikings would approve of that fight. At a cafe, you sip coffee, overhearing talk of democracy. Iceland's parliament, the Althing, claims thing roots, and England's jury system echoes Viking assemblies. You recall the runestone hill, its messy justice. Another joke. Why'd the Viking vote free mead at the thing? You laugh, but the connection's real. Language hits harder. Your Thursday honors, Thor, in Berserk, recalls wild warriors. You think of Björka's bustle, how trade shaped global exchange. Vikings weren't just chaos, they built bridges. You stroll to a harbor, yachts bobbing where Nars once sailed. Modern explorers, from Arctic trekkers to tech moguls, carry that restless spark. You see it in Scandinavian design, clean, bold, like a ship's curve. A final joke. Vikings invented IKEA. Assemble your own saga. You smile, but the truth lands their ambition, their defiance. Fuels today. You toss the pebble into the fjord, its ripples spreading. That stolen cross, the grove's chants, the thing's debates, they're here in words, laws, blood, dreams. As dusk softens the sky, you linger, the air cool and still. The fjord's a mirror, reflecting a world the Vikings shaped, not with just axes, but with courage to sail beyond the known. Your breath slows, the day's hum fading. Let the waves carry you now, their rhythm a lullaby. Picture that longship, its sail full, gliding into mist. You're safe here, wrapped in their story, its warmth a quiet glow. Sleep calls, gentle as starlight, whispering of voyages yet to come. Close your eyes, drift, and rest.